The Velvet Angel continued. I know you've been on the edge of your seat waiting for this part two. So this is the dress pattern that I'm going to use and the sleeve. And I see I wrote a note to myself saying that that needed to be a little bit bigger. So I'm going to cut that out bigger from my velvet. And I use this beautiful hand-dyed velvet, which I used to buy from a company called Artemis. They dyed hand-dyed silk ribbon and velvet, but I don't think they dye the velvet anymore. But this may be a piece I dyed myself. I drew the pattern piece on with a Sharpie, and this is a scrap piece of that velvet, and I'm going to use this for the sleeve. I'm going to trace that on as well. I need 2 of those, and after I trace these on, so I use a Sharpie because that's not going to bleed through to the other side because it's velvet, so it doesn't show up, and I can use that Sharpie. And it's nice and clear, I can see it easily when I'm sewing. The next thing I have to do, I'm going to pin it, and then after I pin it, I have to sew it basting stitch by hand. If you've never sewn velvet before, it just shifts around like crazy when you put the presser foot down. So in order to just keep everything in place and avoid going off the edge of the fabric, I just take the time to do this. I just sew it all together, and then I know when I'm sewing it with a machine that it's going to stay in place. So I sew the sleeves and the body, and I use small close together stitches. So here it is, it's all ready, and I'm going to sew it on the machine next. And here it is, I sewed it on the machine. Then I'm going to cut my pieces out, and after I cut the pieces out, I have to remove the basting stitching, the hand stitching, because if I don't, nothing horrible will happen, but it does poke through on the other side. So when I turn it inside out, you could see it. So I just take a minute to remove it. And then after I remove that stitching, I turn the pieces inside out, and they look so pretty. The velvet is so pretty. I love this red. I've used it for a lot of different things. I dye it myself sometimes, but I'd rather just buy it. I can't do everything. So I can tell the sleeve is a little long, and I'm going to have to trim it because I'm going to add a trim onto the end of the sleeve. So I want to make sure that the hand will show clearly once the trim is added on. So here I'm removing my basting stitch to the best of my ability, because of course I sewed over some of it. And there it is poking through on the other side, and I just have to cut that off. So this will fit on like this, and it looks so pretty already. And then these will fit in like this, and it looks really good already. So love that face. This is trim that I bought last year, and I was hoping to use it on these angels, but at first I thought it would be too wide and I wasn't sure the color would match, but it actually looks really good. And part of what I like about this trim, it has a little bit of body to it, so it's a little stiff, and I like that it gives a little body to the dress. So I'm using my favorite glue here, and it's the way I love it, which is almost dried out. it's so great when it's at this stage where it's just about dried out. It sticks on so quickly. That's what I like about it. So I use the fabric tack glue for this type of gluing. I wouldn't normally use the glue gun for the trim. I use the fabric tack. So here it is on the sleeves. I love the way it looks. It looks kind of like a cuff, and I really, really love it, the look of it. So there it is, and it's looking great already. These are going to be the wings. I got this beautiful lace that the second I saw it, I thought that would make really good wings. And I bought it at a shop in Rhode Island that no longer exists. And I Mod Podge it, which is glue and varnish at the same time, to a piece of fabric. And then I paint them gold. And a little bit of the black shows through, and it just looks really pretty, like distressed. So I'm going to sew the arms on. This part of the process attaches the sleeve to the arm and then both of those to the body. I'm going to also use some glue on that, but I like to attach everything by sewing as well to make sure it doesn't pop off. So I always sew these things on. The other benefit of sewing the arms on is that I can move them around before I glue them to get them into the exact position that I want. So that's why I sew them on, but mostly just to make sure they don't pop off. And I am also going to attach the head the same way by sewing a few stitches. Once I do that, I have to I don't tie a knot at the end of the thread. I'm going to run the thread through the rest of the body, and that will help to hold the dress in place, and it will also finish off the stitching. So that's what I'm doing right now. And this is what I do instead of tying a knot. I just sew it several times in the same place or in different places, and this will hold everything together nicely until I glue it. I'm going to trim that off. Love the way this looks. The wings are going to go in like this. One in the front, one in the back. Just make sure that they're showing. I decided to go with the bow and arrow since it's too late to make a holiday thing. So I made these bows and arrows from something called Craft Text. It's a great product. It is a cross between paper and fabric. And I love it because it has a stiffness to it like paper would, but it doesn't fray or rip. And it's just a great product. So what I do is I paint a piece gold, and then I cut out my little pieces from it. And it's a great product. It's great for I use it for a lot of different things. So that's what I cut the bow out of. So I could fold it in half and cut it like we did in the old days, the old-fashioned hearts. I could cut half out and then unfold it, and I had a whole bow. This is what I'm going to make the arrow out of. This is a little piece of wire that is covered with fabric, and I painted it gold. And I cut the feathers and the arrow out from the craft text. So I'm clipping off what I don't need, and I also have that little cutter, the heart-shaped punch, that I'm going to cut a heart shape out of to put in as the arrow. So this is going to be my arrow. I have to glue those pieces together. And I'm using the Arlene's super thick glue, which works great. I love it because nothing shifts around. It's called tacky glue, and it's really tacky in a good way. So I'm gluing the arrow together, and I have to let that dry before I can go on to the next step. So here's my little puncher. I punched out my heart from iridescent paper, and I'm going to glue that heart onto the arrow part. Thought that was a really good idea, getting that heart punch. So I'm going to glue that on. That will be my arrow. Got to let that dry totally. And that's going to fit in right there. It's going to look adorable. So it's all set now. It's all dried up. And I will be attaching that in the same way as I attached the bow. I'm going to do some stitching on the back of the hand. But then I'm also going to glue it as well to reinforce it. I always do that. I stitch it and then I also glue it. Just want to make sure nothing comes apart. So I'm just going to do a few stitches and then finish it off like I always do by just stitching in the same place a few times. And of course I don't have to worry about it coming out because it will get glued. And I can use either the Arlene's tacky glue or I can use my glue gun. And in the glue gun, I always use only the Gorilla Glue glue. That's what I use for that. So that's in place. And it looks great. Love the look of this. Now I'm going to attach my string. This will be the string at the top of the angel. I'm putting that on now instead of at the end because once I use the glue gun for the wings and for the arms, it may stick to the body and it would make it hard to run that thread through. So these are going to get attached next. I'm putting the wings on next. I'm going to use my glue gun for that. So I put a little glue on the back of the first wing. Look at my glue gun. It's covered with crap from all the time I've used it. It's the best glue gun I ever had. And that's going to go there, and I'm going to glue the other one in the back. I just bought a new glue gun, and it's already not working. This glue gun is probably about, I don't know, 20 years old, and it's the best glue gun. Not even sure what company makes it, but I should buy another one from that company. So there's the wings. And then I'm going to just put some glue behind the head to position that in place. And I'm just going to move the head around to get it in the exact position that I want it in. And that is finished. Thanks for watching. Happy Valentine's Day. See you next time.